There are two other things that I didn't mention in my CV. I am a tactical officer of the F-16 aircraft systems, and also I'm a registered NATO personnel. I'm a dark man, and I will explain you what's going to be in the world. First of all, we are in Serbia. Dobro jutro, if I'm not wrong when I say good day. Si les amis francophones, bonjour. I cannot say buenas tardes. I say buenos dias. It's in the morning still. This presentation requires not only the world economy and what's going to happen with the Brexit and coronavirus, it's also a refreshment about the knowledge of the economy. Time to time, we have some, false beliefs about the economy. For example, the monetary supply, if we print money, there's going to be an inflation. That's nonsense. We are in the 21st century. Most of the theories on the past doesn't work today. So I'm going to make a refreshment, and I'm going to explain what's going to happen, what happened and what's going to happen. So I'm trying to cheer you up, which is actually the most difficult part, because all the information that I have in my hand is bad. Okay, so first of all, I would like to say, but I try to make it entertaining. So first of all, we have to look the world as it is. I mean, the facts and the risk and the concerns. And it starts just like an introduction to economics. But, by the way, I have books about the economics and I have books about love as well. Bestseller in Turkey. I'm not kidding. And the first book was named Betrayal in Love. Why? Because we always sacrifice our possible happiness with the guarantee unhappiness. Why? Because every day we do the same thing with the same knowledge. So we don't cross the red tick line. If you cross the red tick line like that, probably there will be some happiness, not guaranteed. But here, there is unhappiness. So we have to look the world in another way. So that's what I'm talking about. So first of all, if you want to do a business in a country, what do you do? Look first. I was in a WEF meeting in Davos and the extraordinary meeting in Amman. And the first 10 things are this. You can take on and I would like to share this information with you. You can take my presentation. It's all yours. Because next time if you call me, it's going to be another presentation. Because old news is no news. So you go to Monaco, Mr. President, just call me there. I'll be glad to take part in the organization. First of all, we look at the unemployment and underemployment. Why? Because if somebody likes to do a business in a country, in a foreign country, first of all, they look for the people who has money on the pocket. If the people doesn't have the money on the pocket, they don't invest. So that's why the first thing you have to look is this. I don't say that, there's the big entrepreneur says that. Second thing, the failure of national governance. That's the most important part. If the government manages the country well, that's cool. If not, trouble. I can tell you my experience. A year ago, I was in Shenzhen for Huawei. I have to take my plane to Hong Kong. When I just go out from the airport, it was just like a Netflix movie. And people are, throwing stones on the glasses and stuff. And somebody saved me. I just, take the back door and out. So, which means that the government cannot manage a country. I can say the same thing for Bolivia. I can say the same thing for Chile. I can say the same thing for Argentina as well. And, of course, Venezuela. So all of these are very, very critical factors. If somebody doesn't like to invest in a country, one of the reasons is the failure of the national governance. The energy price shock. One example is Turkey. If the energy prices are going up, we're in trouble. I don't know if it's the same thing with the Balkans or any other country, but we have a fear that if someday, one day, or the day after, the energy prices will go up. Now we are happy. Why? Because the petroleum prices are going down, not for good reasons. Because we are in a critical point about the growth of the global economy. Cyber attacks. Fiscal crisis. What I mean fiscal crisis is public finance. If there is a problem with the public finance, people doesn't like to invest there. Why? Because the interest rates are rising or soaring heavily. My dear economist before me shared that the public debt over the GNP is 50%, if I remember. Good, because the Maastricht criteria is 61, but nobody, obeys the Maastricht criteria anymore. But this is a good sign of a healthy economy in Serbia. 50% is good. But if you pass 70%, 75, 80, that's good. But the terrible thing I will show you now, that's not the size of the debt, the maturity and the interest rate. Cyber attacks. If you are open to cyber attacks, the investor doesn't want to come because they just heavily put their money on the digital transformation. So for the countries who are facing the digital transformation, crucially, actually they have to be aware of the cyber attacks. If there's so much cyber attacks and you're not protected, people doesn't want to come. So the profound social instability. An example, Greece. Do we have Greek friends here? Kalispera? Kalimera? Sorry, no. Okay, you know what's happening. The immigrants are come and the people are fighting police. Not on a bad position now, but a good example for this is Hong Kong. This is a profound, deep social instability. Bolivia, for example. In Chile, ladies are uprising. So, which means that when those things are happening, people doesn't want to invest. Failure of financial mechanism or institutions. What does it mean is, truly is failure in the banking system. That's terrible. So in a country where you want to invest, the banking system has to be very, very strong. Otherwise, people don't want to invest. Failure of critical infrastructure. What I mean is, you push on the button, no electricity, no water, airplanes are not flying, and the roads are blocked, tunnels are closed. Okay, if there's something like that in a country, it doesn't work. We don't want to come. And the failure of regional and global governance. We have a lot of that, and you have nothing to do with it. We're just the host of the party. People are orchestrating this. We don't know who. And the terrorist attack is the last one. So these 10 important things are very crucial for an investment abroad. If there is something like that, or 6 of them are present in a country, which means that your investment is in trouble. So you have to check one by one your country and the other country that you invest. So why I'm giving too much importance to global inflation? Because it requires stability and instability at the same time. Nowadays, we are talking about, little inflations, not much. But I remember the 1970s and remember the 1980s. In the 1970s, the difference between the inflation of the emerged countries and the emerging countries only were 2 points. In 1980s, 79. Why? Because we invented the inflationary growth. So what happens? We started to fight inflation in 1990s, so we come up to this, which means every country, merely they have not double digit. There are some countries who have double digit like Turkey, but the emerging countries have around an average of 5% inflation, which is good to me. Core inflation. Why the core is inflation? The core of the fruit. If the core is big, the fruit will be big. No fruit is smaller than its core. So when core inflation means every goods and the services that you have to consume regardless the season, which means every month you are using them. So that's why if the core inflation is high, the main inflation will be sticky, which means it's going to be some hard time to decrease it. So you have to be very careful about the core inflation. When you see this here, the core inflation is moderate. So people are not complaining about the inflation. Contrary, people are complaining about the disinflation in the countries like United States stuff. Global policy rates. Well, I have to warn you that negative real interest rates is not a remedy for growth. We just used this in the 1970s. It didn't work. So a little real inflation, real interest rate is good for growth. So that's why it's just an agony to watch for me that the Fed president and the Turkish central bank president, Mexican central bank president tries to reduce the rates on a negative real interest rates. It's very dangerous. Why? I will show you why. The global growth here is in the moderate pace. We are not talking about 8%, 9%, 10% growth anymore. So, but we're on a moderate pace, which means no problem for the growth. Regardless the coronavirus, of course, I will give some information. But here we say that we have a moderate growth in the world economy. And the global PMI and GDP is important. Probably you know PMI. Well, we have some youngsters in the audience. I see that PMI is the guy or the lady who sits in the company and buys for the inventories. For example, in my university, there is a guy called Junaid. And Junaid is buying computers, tables, chairs. I say, Junaid, are you buying this year? Yes, professor, 15% more. I'm so cheered up, which means I'm going to make money. Why? Because there's demand for my service, and the schools are going good and stuff. But if he says, well, we have problems, not only 5%, well, I'm scared. So that's why when the PMI numbers are going good, I think that the world economy is going healthy. Let's take a look. Manufacturing PMI, actually in those countries, for example, Germany is trying to shake off the illness, is going well. We have the Eurozone here. Well, we have the USA. Yeah, I can say that that's good, but not desired. France, a little problem, but globally, we see that it's going well, better than last year, except the coronavirus, of course. Before the coronavirus, everything was good. So when you look at the world GDP growth, IMF and World Bank surprisingly made two scenarios. I know that IMF is always cautious, but this year, in the beginning of this year, IMF says that in 2020, the world will grow 3.3%, but the World Bank actually made not a bad, but a negative scenario about the world economy, and they said 2.5. Just take this as a baseline scenario. Then wait for the other slides. For the emerging countries, I'm totally, with my colleague, who just explained the Serbian economy well, I'm totally confident with the emerging countries. Emerging countries will have more dynamism than emerged countries, and I'm not saying so. As you see here is the European Union and World Bank and IMF statistics says that the growth path of the emerging 7 countries will be more powerful than the emerged 7. So all the dynamism will come from the emerging countries. That's so. So when you see the GDP by countries, just only information, probably when you take these slides, you're going to use it somewhere. And China has one of the lion's shares in the world economy. And Turkey, as you see here, and there are many countries that are coming. So those are countries who have the biggest GNP of the world. So in my country as well, when you just walk on the street, you take the subway, some of the people are asking me a question. They say that, why we care about this Trump and China dispute? And I do this. I just take my laptop from my bag. I just open this and show the global growth and the global trade is going parallelly. If there's a problem in the global trade, 100% there will be a problem in the global growth. So we have to care about this dispute because this dispute affects everybody, influence every leader in the world. So the protectionism is a killer. When the protectionism kills the trade diplomacy, it kills the diplomacy. When diplomacy is killed, we have war. And we've seen many times before in the world history. So we have to be very careful about this protectionism. The protectionism creates, hot war, which means armed conflicts. So we have to be very careful about it. So the world export, I might say that is not going quite well, but holding its own. And the main exporters of the world is this, and China takes the lion's share, and the United Kingdom is coming in the first 10, and I will explain you what's going to happen with the Brexit, no deal or deal, in the coming slides. So, world export by industries, here we have the iron and steel. I cannot say that we have the lion's share, but there are some other elements who requires iron and steel also in this list. As you say, electric and machinery equipment requires iron and steel still. But iron and steel on its own, the place is here. You have to check. Surprisingly, we have natural or cultural pearls. Would you believe it? They're on the first 5. Well, I was shocked too. when I was checking numbers, pearls are on the top 10 in the world trade. So imports. China is a good importer as well, right after USA. So when there is a problem in China, we will be all sick. So we have to be very careful when we say that I don't care about China. The Trump and China dispute doesn't, involve me at all. Well, that's a big fault. So we have to be very careful when we just use our words. So the Baltic Dry Index is not good as well. So we have to be very, very aware that there is a problem awaiting, in the coming days. So we have to make a B plan. There is no C plan. C plan is a failure. The A plan is the baseline scenario. B plan is the worst case scenario. C plan is closed down scenario. So we don't make C plans anymore. So debt, that's what I'm talking about. Now, we are so much cheered up that the Federal Reserve has the possibility to decrease rates again. But I must warn you, when you see the recessions in the American history, when the Fed comes and do an expansion, a monetary expansion, well, it worked well until 1998. Why I say 1998? Because Putin came along and said, I will not pay my debt. And he just invited the Paris Club. And I said, well, I don't want to pay. I don't have this money. But don't try this at home, please. Because Putin is Putin, and they have natural gas and petroleum. So what happened? Until 1998, the crisis, actually, the Fed hold its own, and whenever they make an expansion, you see, the growth rate was in an acceptable level. But after 1998, we see that the expansion period is prolonged, which means 120 months. For 10 years, Fed financed the market. So what happened? The subprime crisis. There was so much money, and the banks in the United States, well, actually went crazy. And they were just giving credits for the subprime people, which means people who has no credibility to take credit. So what happened? Another crisis. So after 2008, we have another expansion period, and now so far is 125 months, which means more than 10 years. So more than 10 years, Fed is financing the markets with a very low rate, but it serves to nothing. And as you see, the growth rate is decelerating. So which means expansion money, throwing the money from the helicopter doesn't work actually. The companies has to make profit. So what happened? In one way or another, you may think that if the interest rate goes to zero, the interest rate payments has to be reduced, but it wasn't the case. When you see this scan, this is the Fed rates in red, and it's nearly zero. But the interest rate payments of the American state increased to 1.7% to 10.5%, which means whenever the government find the cheap money, they just borrowed. You know what happened now? We have the debt ceilings. Every year we have this quarrel in the Senate, in the Congress, and you see how much the American state is in debt now. Now another scenario, this is not me, this IMF. IMF says that if the G7 countries goes like that with the same pace, same indebtedness, and the same growth rate, in 2050, the public debt over GNP will be 441%. I'm not kidding. I say it again. 441%. But in the same scenario, IMF says that there is a possibility for a remedy. I say what? This one. If they just put 1 point more on the baseline scenario in the growth, which is not possible for me, this reduced to 185%. Which means that America will say that my baseline scenario is 2.5% growth, but I can make 3.5. Is it possible? Japan says that 1.1%, it's going to be 2%. It's not possible at all. Which means here we have an expression in Turkey. I day every day, but I want a day today. Which means one of these countries will say just like Putin, I want to die today. I really want to die. I don't want to pay these debts. It's unpayable. And it's going to happen. When? In 2030s. Get ready for this. I remember my experience. Do we have Swiss friends here? Swiss? No, from Switzerland. No. You know what happened to me? A couple of years ago with my fiancé, I went to Geneva for a ski holiday. And when I just stepped in after 2.5 hours of airplane flight, everybody was pale, just like, white. Somebody died, or the president, or the prime minister. No, they said. Our money was revaluated. I said, devaluated? No, they say, revaluated. You know what happened? Because as the Swiss franc was very expensive against the euro, the central bank of Switzerland was selling Swiss franc every day for 18 months or so. But the guy says that, I'm up to here. I just finished it this day. 30% revaluated Swiss franc that day in 2.5 hours. And the Basel Fair was at that time actually open. All the Swiss exporters were killed. Well, it passed, of course. Which means someday, one day, from these countries, a president, a prime minister will say that, I don't want to pay this anymore. It's not payable. Is it payable? I ask you this question. Is it payable? It's not payable at all. So, if you ask me, the next crisis won't come from an emerging country. The next crisis will come from an emerged country. So get ready for this. Okay, sorry for the terrible news. Okay, so the situation of the world is this. Just look at it. If you are inside with less people, it's very cheerful. You got beautiful view, mountains and stuff. If everybody comes there will be a trouble. So we have a very, very fragile situation here, so we have to be very careful about it. So make your B plans, and the C plans is the exit plan. Okay, the B plan is, I don't know, you have to get ready for this 2030s debt operation. Okay, so Brexit. Well, with the Brexit, European Union will lose the financial capital of the world. And the second largest economy, and the economy of the European Union will reduce to 13.5 trillion euros. And the per capita won't change much. It's going to reduce only 1,000 euros. And the second largest net contributor. And if we have German friends here, bad news, you will pay more for the European Union, membership, because and the United Kingdom is going out. And the third largest population of the Europe will be out of the European Union. Actually, that's not a problem. All of the things that you see here is not a problem for European Union. The problem is there. European Union is exporting heavily to Britain, which means the United Kingdom. And if there will be no deal, there will be a huge trouble. And we, as like Turkey, there are some countries who are not member of the European Union, but also a member of Customs Union. So we don't know with which tariffs we will sell to United Kingdom. And the United Kingdom is the third largest market for Turkey, for example. We just sell machinery and spare parts, automotive and spare parts, durable goods, I presume, all requires iron and steel, actually. So there will be big trouble. If you ask me, the trouble is there. Not here, but here. So we don't know with which tariffs we will sell to this mighty country. Not mighty in size, but mighty in economy. Okay, so that's going to be a big trouble. But I think that we will find a way. You know why I know that? I was with the consulate of Istanbul of United Kingdom. And the lady was asking me a question, surprisingly, this year Turkey gives a trade deficit to Britain. How could it happen? I say, it's a trade deficit on paper, but actually we sell our goods and the services from another way. Which means we find some countries who can sell quota-free, tariff-free to United Kingdom. So which means in the paper, we are in the deficit, but actually in the practical way, we are in the surplus again. So somebody or somehow, or all the companies who sells to United Kingdom will find a way. Don't worry. That's not going to be a problem. That's not a huge problem. For some months, yes, we will have a problem. I don't know if Serbia sells to the United, a little, but there won't be a problem. So we will find a way. There will be some countries who have already made a preferential trade agreement with the United Kingdom, so there won't be a problem for me. So, but this is the problem. Here, European Union will have all the problems. So let them solve it. Let them solve it. After they solve, we will find a way. So I think that, in the middle of the year, this problem will be solved. So for the Brexit, I don't have so much doubt on my heart, on my soul, on my brain. So when you look at here, there is so much red. I'm not going to disturb you with my reds here, all the bad news and stuff. But we are not that much optimistic, just like the beginning of the year, I will presume. But here, the central bank economists in Turkey, and I'm one of them, we think that the Eastern Europe, just like requires the survey again, will be more rigorous and more powerful than any other part of the Europe, which means the Eastern Europe, besides all the problem with the quota issues, the Eastern Europe will have the same pace. Even though there's Brexit, even though there will be some coronavirus effect and stuff, we think that Eastern Europe will be powerful as it is, but there will be some problem in the other parts of the world. China, definitely. East Asia, Pacific, definitely. Latin America, definitely. The whole Europe. Japan, I don't know, big question mark. But first of all, in the Brexit included, coronavirus excluded scenarios, the Eastern Europe, as we are here in Eastern Europe, good news, you just stay healthy. Ta-da, okay. You can just give me a coffee right after this, So, if you look at the economic indicators, well, there will be some problems. As I say in the earlier, inflation is not a problem for the emerged countries. Disinflation is a problem. But now, there is a problem with the inflation. I mean, inflation is not increasing in the emerged countries. So, people try to boost the economy with the negative real interest rates. But it's not possible. It's not a remedy. You will see that we will have more problems with big money and very low interest rates. So I have to underline this. I will give all of these details to you. You can use my presentation wherever you like. So you will see the numbers here. So, okay, the subject, coronavirus outbreak. So this is different than SARS. Probably you know better than me. You see all the numbers. Now we are up to 9,000 people who was affected from the coronavirus effect. And this is this shows the difference between SARS and the coronavirus. In the SARS, the death rate is nearly 10%. But the people are not much here, less populated. Here, we have a lot of people who is affected from coronavirus, but the death rate is only 3.4%. I'm not saying that it's less, because we have 2,990 people died just yesterday. It's yesterday's number. It's huge numbers. But when you see the death rate, it's not so much. It's not so big. So why we are making so much trouble with the coronaviruses? Because the panic, because people think that once you get caught, you will die. People are just making this in the social media. In the social media, you see so many videos and like that. I'm also terrified for my kids, not for myself. But I'm here today. I cannot say that I'm not afraid. But fear is a mind killer. So you have to pass over this fear. And with all this mask, it doesn't work. So with the mask, even you can get caught. You touch the elevator, something like that. So it's no use. So that's why I have two scenarios in my head. The first scenario is this. Do you remember the World Bank scenarios without the coronaviruses? They say that the global GDP will be 2.6 this year. If the coronaviruses will be fade away in the end of April, I will be only cut down 0.1 point from the global growth. But if the coronaviruses will be effective at the end of the year, until the end of the year, I have to cut down 0.5 points from the world growth, which means we will reduce to here, 2%. 2% means nearly the same growth rate of 2019, which is not a desirable year. Here in the global trade volume, the global trade in means of unit, if this ends in April, I will cut down 0.5 points from the units of the global trade, which means the volume. But if it doesn't, well, I have to cut down the size 1.5 points, which means 0.5. Nearly the same pace of the last year. And it's a killer. Because this year, we were so much cheered that the unit basis of global trade will be increased 2.5%, and the prices will be up 3%, which means the first time, after all of these years, exporters were so much, happy to increase their prices, and then the coronavirus outbreak. So, which means you have to be careful. If we just continues to talk this one until the end of this year, we will be in trouble. So we have to be aware of this. So in Turkey, I'm just laughing. I was just commenting every day on the TV. Some of the textile producers say that, hooray, all the export demand will shift to Turkey. For two reasons is rubbish. The first reason is the capacity. We don't have that much capacity. The second reason, we have so much items imported from China in low prices, then we have to find another place, another country to procure all of these. And it's going to be very expensive because China prices is 30% down. So the problem in Turkey is today inflation, which means it's going to put pressure on the inflation again. So all of these, tears of joy because China is in trouble for some countries actually is not a healthy state of heart, is not a healthy state of brain, is not a state of intelligence. So we have to be very aware of it. So we will be done. We have to be very careful. So Lombardia, any friends from Italy? No, I don't think so. Last year, Lombardia said that I don't want to work for the government anymore as I'm producing 22% of the GDP. I want to be out. I want to be independent. Do you remember this? I remember it was a high debate in Italy. Today, actually, they're asking aid from the government. So that is the world history. So Lombardia represents 22% of the GNP, and in Lombardia now, including Milan, nobody's on the street. It's a deserted place. So big trouble, big trouble. Why big trouble? Because if you look at the economic history of the world, for 2,000 years, Lombardia is one of the strongest places in the world in means of growth. Now, big trouble. After Berlusconi, they had so much trouble, but with this coronavirus, some much trouble added on there. So, why I say China is important? Because 32% of the China's GDP is produced by the industry. We say technology today, but technology is important for China, but still industry, which means iron and steel are used here, and they have to import and export iron and steel products. So that's why when the China is in trouble, the whole world will be in trouble. So nobody can say that, okay, we are safe because we are far away from China. That's not the case. When you see the global and iron and steel exports of China, they are the country number one. In the imports, country number 3, which means they take the lion's share of the iron and steel imports. You can take a photograph, but you can take the presentation, as I told you, whenever you want. So when you look at the iron and steel exported by China, well, it's very significant. And those are the countries where China is exporting. You see Korea, Vietnam, Thailand, Philippines, Indonesia, Taipei, India, Malaysia, which means all of the countries that are emerging actually are heavily nurtured by China's iron and steel exports. When you look at the importing is also a bit of a case. When you just export your products to China, China is transforming this to a value-added product. So when China is in trouble, the whole sectors will be in trouble, as I told you. So surprisingly, the prices are going up a little. Did you notice this? yesterday. Why? Because the capacity is squeezed. When the capacity is squeezed, the demand is rising. When the demand is rising, the prices are going up. So whoever says that for the emerging countries, the inflationary process is no longer a threat, actually for me is a big threat, especially in Turkey. So we have to find some goods and services in a very expensive way. Because we use China. For example, I'll give you an example. Turkey is importing $25 billion of imports from China, but exports only 3, which means we are heavily dependent on the raw materials, investment goods, and intermediary goods, investment goods and raw materials. We are heavily dependent on China. When China is not on the game, so we have to find a way, but this way is a very expensive way. So there's going to be an inflationary process. What is the impacts? Well, as you see, for example, Market, Citibank, JP Morgan, and BBC, all the news channels, all the institutions are saying bad things about what's happening in China. For example, BBC says that car sales in China fell 92% in February. That's bad. 92% fell, which means it's a killer. So you don't sell anything. That's terrible. The other global impacts. Starbucks had closed more than half of its stores. McDonald's suspended the business in 5 cities. Walt Disney temporarily closed in Shanghai and Hong Kong theme parks. IMAX delayed the film release. H&M, 45 stores has closed. Swatch has closed 5 stores. Apple has currently closed one of its retail stores in China and reduced hours and others. So what I mean that if you want to expand your business, you have to have a good or a services on the shelf. Most of the American companies are, producing in China. You know how many? 17,000, including Nike, Under Armour. So at 85% of this production goes to the actually mother state, which means the Americans are using Chinese products in American brands. Imagine that if they are not producing that, you don't put a good on the shelf. If you don't put a good on the shelf, on the store, you cannot sell. If you cannot sell, which means the growth is decelerating. So that is the problem here. So we have to be very, very careful. So enough for the bad news. Okay, I know that you're just up to here about bad news about the coronaviruses. But for me, if you ask me, I'm 50 now, which means I'm 50 years old. I have many, many experiences in the world. I remember even when I'm a childhood, the 74 petroleum crisis. In 1980s, another crisis. So in 1989, crisis from Russia, 94, 2001, 2008. So, okay, we see a lot of crises. Well, whether the crisis, we have to write the storm. So how can I write the storm? With this. Do you remember this? Oh. We say in Turkish, Allah rahmet eylesin, rest in peace. Okay, so we don't see the guy anymore. Why? Because Kodak didn't change the skills of the businesses. But in the same time, I remember Mr. Bronson, who has the Virgin. And I remember the Virgin mega stores in London, because my mother had a medical treatment in cancer for 12 years, and the only joy that I have is getting his master's voice and Virgin mega stores. Overnight, he just closed down all the stores because he found out that nobody buys music anymore. And Spotify and all the other things are coming back. So you have to be aware that where the business is going. If you are not aware where the business is going, coronavirus is a least thing. So you have to survive, not ride in the storm because of a virus, because of the Brexit, but you have to see that where the business is going. If you cannot see, you're going to live your Kodak moment. Be aware of it. So what is the reality of the third millennium? Actually, is not, fighting over a coronavirus or fighting over, a Brexit or stuff. Creativity, use of the technology, innovation and know-how, which means competition with value creation. What I mean is, actually, you don't sell products. You sell solutions. If there is solution, there is no competition. But if you sell products, there's going to be a lot of competition. When there is too much competition, you discount. When you discount, you cannot make money. So that is the issue. I'm not saying that. 2 professors in the Harvard University says that in 1970s, the fabrication, which means the production, taking the steel, take the plastic, put on the thing, which means all the operations in the factory means 23% in the price. Today, 11%. All the things that you do before the fabrication and after the fabrication counts as a value. What I mean is branding, technology, digital infrastructure, critical infrastructure, human resources, and right after the fabrication, what? Marketing, sales, collecting money, finance, fairs, logistics. So if we are so much focused on the fabrication, we lose money. In Turkey, we have the same case. Everybody talks about the fabrication, but nobody talks about the other things who puts value on the price. So that is the case. So, well, terribly, it's very terrifying to hear that 89% of the other operations actually puts value on the price, not the fabrication. So that is the most important thing, and I will leave this. So they asked a question a while ago. This poll is made in the more than 100,000 people in the world, including Turkey, Serbia as well. They ask a question, losing which piece of the technology will have the greatest negative impact on you? And most of the people in my age says the automobile. But the youngsters doesn't say that. They say, what? They say the mobile phone. Because the automobile is no more a solution. Automobile is a problem. Because you don't know where to put in the big metropole. The parking problem. You crash the car. All of this. I know that it's very useful for your operations. But when you look at the youngsters doesn't want to buy a car anymore because all the cars will be automated in 10 years, which means there's going to be no pilot. And they always say that I buy a car and the value is discounted 20% in a day. So why I'm going to buy this? I'm going to share this. So there's going to be a sharing period. We are not talking about the, autocratic things. We're going to talk anonymous and autonomous things. So we have to be careful about the youngsters that come in the Y generation. I'm going to ask a question. Who are the people here in this audience who just born from between 79 and 99? Which means 1979 and 99. Anybody? Anybody below 30 here? Yeah, you see that. Those are the people who likes to be the deputy general manager in 3 days. Okay. So they're not very passionate. They want to share. You want to share. I know that. You don't want to own anything who is expensive. You don't want to spend your money, like hell. You're just more rational than us. I'm 50, most probably you're in the 30s. So you are more careful. So again, my colleague, Minish Shafiq, says that anything that is routine or repetitive will be automated. She's in the London School of Economics. What she means that, for example, your wife or your husband is calling, where are you? Sorry, I'm counting this and counting that and stuff. There will be no alibi in 10 years. So all of these things will be automated, which means you have to find another way to lie. Okay, so that's all going to be automated. So you have to be very careful. 2 days ago, I was in Istanbul in a meeting, in an international meeting, who says that the role of the CFO in the digital world. And I say, there is no role of the CFO in the digital world. There will be no CFOs. Really? So we have to be very careful. So all be digitalized. So that's why all of the jobs in the factory or in the company will be taken over by the artificial intelligence or the robots. So we have to be very careful about this. So that is the case. I was working as a general secretary of the Turkish Football Federation, and every day one of the vice presidents was come onto my room and say that, Emre, they are on toilet. Emre, they are just smoking cigarettes. I was up to you and said that, leave them be. Put on the toilet the joy, the Wi-Fi, put the charger, and they will say that at 2:30 the report has to be ready on my desk. And that's it. Don't control the people, control the business. In this world today, there is no hierarchy. We have to control the business, not the people. If you control the business, that's cool, which means we don't have to control the people. You just put Wi-Fi. Don't cut the Wi-Fi in the company because people are out and people are strolling on the street. It doesn't matter. You know, Turkish Football Federation organizes 87,348 matches every year with a huge digital infrastructure. I don't need to see them. I want them to do the job. So that is the reality. Without this digital infrastructure, we cannot appoint the referees. We cannot send them to cities. We cannot control the matches and stuff. So we have to control the business, not the people. That is the issue. Coronavirus, Brexit, they're all important issues. But the most important thing, how to manage our companies. So I'll show you. People like 50, like I am after 45, we like hierarchies because we are the X generation. If there is no hierarchy, we create. But the youngsters doesn't like this. Youngsters likes to see us like a maestro of an orchestra, which means it's a network. We have to manage a company like a maestro, which means helping the people with the education. Increase their capacity and their quality, and they manage the company just like a beautiful song, beautiful concerto. That is the thing. So that's why we have to be very careful. Nevertheless, you are not selling this. An iPhone XS, a Louis Vuitton mid-size bag, and the 2-carat bracelets. What is the similarity of this? What is the common point of all of this? Yes, that is the same price. You're right. But iron and steel, that's not the case. So you are selling a product people have to buy. But there's a lot of competition, I know. But imagine that you were just selling all of these. Killer. Once upon a time, when there was a Louis Vuitton shop in the Saint-Honoré, Paris, they were saying that if you are rich, you can come. Do you remember? You just try to find where is the Louis Vuitton in Paris. Now everywhere is Louis Vuitton. You know why? Because it is affordable luxury now. They like to take the money on the pocket of every people you can imagine. Why? Because the rich are not sufficient to pay them. So that is the important thing. They are just now, once upon a time, a telephone was a rival of a telephone, the bag was a rival of a bag, and this one is a rival of the same item. Not anymore now. Everybody is rival to everybody. So every brand likes to pick the money on the pocket of the people. Isn't that so? So this is the affordable luxury. Thank God you are not on this matter. Thank God you are on the iron steel business, which means it's not dependable to price. If people likes to construct something, they need iron and steel, but not the iPhone. Okay, so what I'm saying is, if you want to manage a company in a vigorous way, please satisfy the employees. Without the satisfaction of the employees, it doesn't work. With the satisfaction of the employees, the firm performance improves. The customer loyalty improves. Employee productivity improves. Profitability improves. I'm not saying that. This is still Oxford, Harvard business professor says that. And when you just complain about the staff turnover, oh, so much people are coming and going, that's your fault. Because there's no customer and employee loyalty. If there is an employee loyalty, you will see there's going to be a customer loyalty as well. Which means everybody has to be happy. Not happy like crazy, but people say that, yes, I like this firm and my identity belongs here. So you have to be aware of this again. So, most of the youngsters think that they are alone. And this is another, analysis. We, the Generation X, 20% of our generation thinks that they are alone. I choose to be lonely, for example. I'm not alone. There's nobody around me, but I choose to be lonely. I'm happy with that because I'm a hierarchic, people. I can use my own hierarchy to myself. When I look at the mirror, I can talk like a crazy guy. But the millennials are not like that. 30% of millennials think that they are alone, which means we have to show them compassion. We have to be patient. because they will come after us. They will take the flag after us. We have to convince them to be ethical. We have to be experimental, and we have to be a good, not boss, but a leader for them. Why I'm saying that? The mindset of an organization has changed. Once upon a time, it was profit. Now the purpose. Hierarchy doesn't count anymore. We just manage the companies with the network. 3 months ago, a lady came along to my office and she said, what are you going to put on my business card? I say, Queen of Scotland. Did you like it? Really? Can you fulfill the thing? No. What I mean is, if somebody in the company does his best, this is how we try to organize a company. The people who tries their best in a company, just like an orchestra. Always have a B plan. You can make a substitute, but too much pressure or too much positions or too much squares in the company actually doesn't work. It kills. Too much hierarchy, too much layers are killing the business. And after you see that, you don't hear the market. When you don't hear the market, you're on the way of collapsing the company. So we have to be very careful about it. So planning is good, but if you ask me, experimentation is the best. Just create 10 pilot projects. When I say pilot, because if you lose money, you will say it's a pilot project. But if you do 10 pilot projects, even 3 out of these 10 works, you just win. Money and the people in the company. So why I'm saying that? I make so much mistakes in my life. That's why I'm telling you. It's not something I just creating because I just read it from somewhere. No, I made those mistakes. And I learned my lesson well. So, controlling, not controlling. Please, empower the people. Don't control the people. Empower the people. Say that I give you the full authority, but I will control you. Just like Ronald Reagan says, always trust, but check. Always trust, but check. Again, risk management in emerging economies. I know that we are just working like here. Here, we do a lot of things. I have an angel. I don't know where I'm going like that. We are always doing the risk management in a very, very abnormal ways. Actually, not the coronavirus, not the Brexit, the way that we are managing the risks actually putting us in troubles. There are some other ways. Look, this is the risk management in Turkey. We have a dangerous one as well like that, in the south of Italy. So, this one, Venezian way. Really. You see the fire exit over there? I'm not kidding. I just photographed myself last year in the Venezia. So, the planning is always like that. So, we always start, hey, I'm going to do this, I'm just laughing, we don't know where we're going, but still we're planning for the best and stuff. So we see that, you're out of nothing. So you have to be very careful about the planning. The planning is the core thing. And you don't do the planning like that, I did this for 10 years, so I'm going to do this again for 10 years coming. No, that's not the case. It needs resources, human resources. It needs strategy. It needs tactical issues. It is many things, operational even. So if you ask me, you have to divide the whole life in 3. Operational, tactical, strategical. So operational is the daily life. Tactical, you have to manage with the medium level people, but strategy requires everybody. So you have to change the strategy every once a year, not every time. Otherwise, it's going to be tactical. So remember, again, you don't sell goods or services. You sell solutions. So this is not a good design. You say that I want to be different. Yes, you can be different, but it's not useful. If you try to be different, try to be useful as well. So that is the case. So you see the user experience and the design factor. This is the case in Turkey. People say that we are doing good designs, but nobody uses actually. So we have to be very careful when we do the design. And you see, it's not how we manage the company. There is freedom of speech, but I cannot guarantee freedom after speech. We don't like this. You have to let the people talk, but after they talk, don't fire them. Okay, don't hurt them. Because the superiors has to listen. Okay, if I cannot say anything to my superior, I have fear. And again, fear is a mind killer. So fear is a mind killer. You have to talk. So the boss and the leader, they are quite different. If you have Brexit and the coronavirus coming, all the bad things are coming hand to hand towards you. If you're a good leader, you can get through. But if you're a boss, I cannot say so. The boss and the leader are quite different things. So this is the wolf pack. Here we have the old wolves. You know why? Because they know the path and they are very well experienced. Here we have the 5 youngsters. They are powerful and they protect the old wolves. Here we have the females and the littles, and we have 5 against strong wolves. And the leader is where? Leader is in the back. Which means if you're a boss, you always say that, hey, I'm here. Even though your CEO or CFO does a good thing, you always have to show yourself. But the wolf pack is a good example. The leader is always on the back because it's a leader. The leader doesn't have to prove anything because you're a leader. You just choose the best guy, best lady to the best position. And that's it. Don't wait for anybody applauding you and stuff like that. So kill your ego. If you're working for the people, you cannot have an ego. Ego is also a mind killer. So you have to be very careful. So 4 golden rules for the youngster, not for the experienced people. Listen to the experienced and creative personnel with a successful example. Why I say that? There are some people among us who are managing older people as well, older than themselves. I'd just like to remind you some experience of 1,000 years. 1,000 years ago, in the Middle East, there was a guy who called Ebu Muslim Khorasani. He was a Persian. He was not a likable guy, but he was a powerful guy. He was a governor of Khorasan. And he died. He was hanged. In Middle East, it happens. They say that with a stone in a wall, he just writes down a poem. He said that I saw many leaders in many places. They take their friend as granted. They just make them away. They try to make friends the enemies. The enemies never turn to friends, but the friends turn to enemies. And when they gathered all together, the failure was inevitable. You understand? Again, I say many leaders in many places, they just take their friends as granted and they just make them away. They try to make friends all the enemies. But the enemies never turn to friends. But the friends turn to enemies. When they get together, the failure was inevitable. You see? If you have some personal in the company that you just walk for every crisis, every bad things, and they are loyal to you, don't make them away. Make a common understanding between the youngsters and the elders all together in the company. If they want to fight, make them fight for a good peace. As the Napoleon says, we always fight for a better peace. But those 2 generations has to get together to provide a value for the company. Otherwise, the failure is inevitable. The second thing, keep an eye on the competitors. You can say that I just hold 75% of the market in my country. Yes, that's why the other guy likes to kill you. He or she will run away. So you have to be very careful. Be sure that the fast-moving goods also available at the time. If I call you and you said, it's just finished, I won't call anymore. So you have to be careful that the fast-moving goods are always available. And the 4th thing, never ignore the communication that motivates the customers. Every 2nd of July, the bankers are calling me. They want to sell something. And I say, what is this day? 2nd of July. What is 2nd of July? They cannot find it. It's my birthday, I say. Sorry, professor. Sorry, we didn't know. One day, I just, want you to call me. I just called to say, I love you. Really. Without selling anything. Because it's of 2nd of July, that's my birthday. Just call me for a good reason. Call me for the love. Call me for an information. Don't call me to sell something. So that is the important thing. So if you want to leave this industry, if you say that I'm up to here, Fernando Pessoa says that there are ships sailing to many harbors, but none of them brings you where life is less painful. Everywhere you go, there is pain. So if you want to leave this steel and iron industry, don't leave. It is one of the best industries in the world. And thank you very much for your patience. Thank you.
If you know too much, sometimes it is problem. What is make your life happy in this world?
Well, discovery, actually. As you say that if you know so much, too much, when you can make a lot of mistakes, and discovery never fails. So actually my life is ignited by different discoveries. And those discoveries makes me alive. When you just call me here, amid the coronaviruses, I just accept it, with my heart. So I want to be here. And I like to learn from you as well now, because I will stay here at noon and, until the end of the conference just to learn more. Learning more and discovery actually drives me, I will rather say. Yeah. That's good. Being bachelor is another thing, so we have to talk it afterwards. Yeah, I'm open to every question. Yeah, please, the gentleman over there. So, yeah.
Thank you for the beautiful presentation.
Thank you.
I really enjoyed it. My question is related to one of your slides. You talked about the negative impact for European countries with the Brexit. Basically.
For the Brexit, yeah.
So what's the negative impact for Britain? You didn't say much about what would be the negative impact on Britain.
On Britain?
Britain, yeah.
On Britain. I think that they will shake off in 5 years and they will be stronger again. When you look at the United Kingdom, actually, it's not very well diversified. London takes the lion's share of all business activity, 69%, by the way. When you see the digital infrastructure, 72% of whole United Kingdom, which means, in any case, United Kingdom is just like London, or London around, not Manchester, not Liverpool and stuff. Even Wales says that I want to go out, and even Northern Ireland says that I want to be with the Ireland and I want to stay with the European Union member. It won't affect much, actually. But now the European Union tries to take the Northern Ireland part from United Kingdom and try to collide with Ireland. I don't know what's going to happen, but when you see the business activity and the export that the United Kingdom does, I think in 5 years, they will take a benefit of this Brexit issue, I presume. I'm optimistic for them.
What about the labor force?
Neighborhood.
The labor force.
Labor force. Well, the problem is in Wales and Scotland, mostly, and that's why they are actually voted on the other side, for the other side. There will be a lot of problem, but still, I think that with the vigorous management of the government, they can also shake off this problem. So, because the population rate is low, which means not much youngster. Like Turkey, for example, we have a problem. We have a lot of youngsters who doesn't have a job. In United Kingdom, we don't have that much case. 27% of the youngsters are, they don't have a job in Turkey. In United Kingdom, that's not the case. So that's why in 5 years, they will find a way to shake off this. Otherwise, I don't think that the British worker is working in the European Union now. I don't see such case. I saw so much Italian in the United Kingdom. I saw so much Bulgarian in the United Kingdom. Not the United Kingdom or the British worker or British waiter on Italy, on the Balkans, on anywhere in the world. They are a bit closed society.
But that's exactly my point.
Yeah.
There's not enough skilled Britons, if you like. So
actually,
they rely a lot.
Their digital skill is better than any other country. So most probably they will turn to more digitalized than industry on the coming days. And Huawei is making a lot of investment on the digital infrastructure, if you are aware of it. So I'm optimistic. I'm not pessimistic about them, but the European Union will badly affected of this Brexit, most probably. So if you ask me, this Brexit vote was nonsense, because European Union friends thinks that the history is a fluke, but actually why we just created this European Union to have the longest period without a big war in Europe, and the leverage was euro. Now, when we see that all the youngsters and the politicians of the European Union and in the Great Britain forget about this idea, how they have the First World War, how they have the Second World War, how we have all this agony and pain in the euro. When you just read the 49 first pages of the Umberto Eco's Name of the Rose, you see that how the Europeans are killing each other, how they make a pact and stuff. It was a leverage of not having a big war for a long period of time. Now I'm afraid. Not because of the economic issues, but the political issues. European Union for me was one of the best political projects of the world. Now it's collapsing. That's why I'm very much concerned. Not economically, politically I'm very concerned, if I'm answering your question. So, any other question? I'm for European Union, by the way. Just, I would like to tell. I'm not for Brexit, I'm for European Union. I believe in the European Union, even they just allow us to get in, as being Turkish. I think that the European Union is one of the best tools to not have a big war. Yeah, I think we're done. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you.